Hello and welcome to the Last Mixtape Podcast. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we review Callum Orr's debut offering, The Trials of Knowing, and the latest music from the week that was. But first, hello and welcome back to the Last Mixtape Podcast with me, Stephen White. And on this week's show, I want to review Callum Orr's debut album, The Trials of Knowing, and it is a beautiful album indeed, full of handmade folk, indie and trad style music brought to life by a commanding vocal that weaves itself into the songwriting patterns that undulate within the music and album itself. It is tidal music, it does undulate in a dynamic way, and it is an interesting self-portrait, or first self-portrait, of Callum Orr, the artist and songwriter himself. Now, I really adore this album, and kind of my final listen to it, of a few listens to it, was this morning. I walked down the Liffey, dear listener and viewer, on a sunny morning here in Dublin, and I really just fell into this album, and it is very much an album that you can fall into, but mostly by Orr's own commanding vocal presence and his turns of phrase, very expressionistic songwriter, and you can feel it kind of flowing together. And I was kind of brought to mind of the debut album from Martha Wainwright, which is a self-titled debut album, a little bit of Damien Rice and O, and a little bit of Josh Ritter, Hello Starling. So those kind of era of the folk singer-songwriter merging with the indie kind of sounds to it, that really drew me into it. And it's just so well produced, especially for that, because it is an album that has a multitude of textures and multitudes of sound within that sphere. And it plays with them absolutely beautifully. The opening song, Prop, is soft, it's organic, it's warm. There's a little tinge, a little slight warmth to the vocal, almost that kind of lo-fi-ish kind of tinge to it that I thought was absolutely brilliantly placed, because it does kind of hint towards what happens the rest of the record. Crushing Machine then. So we have this kind of organic opening with Prop and stuff like that. 2 songs later we have Crushing Machine, which is far more experimental. It has kind of spoken word elements to it. It's square dynamic. It brings that indie contrast that plays throughout the album and allows it to, as we say, undulate from these kind of tidal organic moments of Prop into something a little bit more abrasive, a little bit more engulfing in its tone and its terms. And again, it's really well placed because the songwriting is incredibly strong, that it can withstand that amount of production, that amount of musicality, that amount of ideas. You do have to allow the actual song itself to live in those spaces, and it does. And that's a really stands to Orr himself and the producers and everyone who worked on it, because they are able to kind of straddle that line between kind of you lost this, it's too top heavy into a sound that's really great. And Crushing Machine really shows that the album is not just one thing, because I think when you go into it with Prop, you may be feeling, oh, it is A, and the album is going to end at A as well, which can happen with these records. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does kind of show this is where you are, you start at the beginning, you end at the beginning, where this album does take you to different places. Dust, which is, I think, kind of the lead single coming into the release of the album this weekend. Yeah, again, it tells the kind of more expansive into the storytelling mode of it. As I say, it's self-portraits to the prism of kind of vignettes and self-assessment and things like that, which I think is really beautifully done. And it plays into like even other softer moments like Hello Marianne, which I wonder was maybe a little nod, perhaps maybe not, to Leonard Cohen and So Long Marianne, I don't know. But lovely soft swaying waltzy type sound. That was the one that really brought to mind to me Josh Ritter. And the moments as well, I should say, Prop and Dust were the more kind of like, there's a little bit of Damien Rice in there. And that's not to say that in any way that Callum doesn't find a singular sound himself and find his own voice. In fact, his own voice is very much the main character. His vocal is very much in the foreground, right at the listener. The words are exact. You can hear everything that's been sung, one, because they've been sung so perfectly and the harmonies are so perfect, but there's a clarity to it that allows you to hear the words. You're not thinking, what did he just say in that lyric there? What was just said? You're very much locked in with the music and with the sound of it. The song that really stood out to me, though, comes at the end, and it's God's Breath, which is this beautiful, and it features Shawnee Birmingham, and it's this closing epic, and it really kind of moves into almost Clannad-esque type soundscapes in the background, drones, traditional. The vocals themselves have that kind of commandingness to them that you just kind of feel, there's something, that's very different. And it still lives within the world of the Trials of Knowing, absolutely, and it's actually a beautiful close, and it does, as I said at the beginning, you start at prop, which let's say it's A, and you end up with God's Breath, which is like you're maybe S or Q at that point, right? You're very far away, but you're still within the kind of the confine. And I think it's so striking and so beautiful and so well produced, because it's hard to do that. It's hard to kind of create those sounds and make them as interesting. And there's shades of Lankum in there, as I said, the shades of Clannad in there. It's taking that kind of trad drone and really again resting it on the vocal, which is really the kind of the huge characteristic, not just the songwriting of Callum Orr on this album, but the vocals in it, and with Shawnee Birmingham. And yeah, that's the moment where I was like, that's incredibly interesting. Now I would, if firstly my mind went to, I would, second album, if I was in the producer's chair, Callum, if you're listening or watching, can we make an album of that? Now, maybe not. Maybe the response would be, but I fell in love with that track especially. That was really one on the couple of listens that I gave, that I was really like, that's just so great. That's just so brilliant. Not to say the rest of the album doesn't have its huge highlights, which it does, the aforementioned Crushing Machine and Prop and Dust. But God's Breath was the one I was just like, that's just a great piece of songwriting. And it's a great piece of production, and it's using the album as a form to have that album, that song in. It's not going to be like, there's no way in our man that's going to go, that's the single. But I think it is a powerful song that would live very, very beautifully live. And it does show where this album rests in terms of where it is in the Irish music scene, because we have a lot of great songwriters, and David Keenan comes to mind. We have said like the likes of Damon Rice and all that, but the more modern songwriters, Callum puts himself in that area of perhaps a David Keenan, and Damon Dempsey not so much, but yeah, in that kind of area. And I really think he cuts a very interesting figure in that way. As I say, there's the bit of Martha Wainwright there, which is the kind of most in the self-debut album. If you've never heard actually Martha Wainwright's debut album, which was self-titled, I believe that was her debut record, the one with Factory on it. It's a beautiful record, do seek it out. But it has that kind of sound to it that is just so Irish and so of this island and so of that sound. One Day International is another one that comes to mind from that kind of era. And he just does it beautifully, and it's done beautifully, and it's portrayed beautifully, and it's a beautiful recording as an album, The Trials of Knowing. And it has, as I say, a real kind of narrative to it that plays throughout and really shows Callum as a very commanding songwriter and a very commanding artist. And I really do hope this one gets a lot of attention, because I think it's a fantastic record. Not least of all God's Breath, which I would say, if you're going to check bits out of it, I would say that. But that's me, because it was like, that's beautiful. And not to harp on about it, but it's like, that's such a, and you know what, such a strong ending, which you do have to give with albums. You have to really end it on the right notes. And I do believe that Callum Orr did that with The Trials of Knowing, and so it goes, and there it went. That is The Trials of Knowing by Callum Orr. Would I recommend it to you, dear listener or dear viewer? Absolutely I would. I think this is a beautiful album, as I say, of a sunny morning here in Dublin, walking down the Liffey. I really enjoyed the record, and I really enjoyed those moments in it as well. And I definitely would say go seek it out. It is out now, and you can listen to it on Spotify and all the places and spaces that you want to listen to music. I won't tell you where to listen to it. Go and find Callum out on all his socially places too, and listen to the music and listen to his sound, because this is a very great Irish album that I really hope gets a lot of attention, because there seems to be a lot of work went behind it, and there's some absolutely truly beautiful moments. So that is Callum Orr, The Trials of Knowing. I would recommend it. Yes, dear listener, they seek him here, they seek him there, those musos seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven or is he at the disco? That damned elusive Count of Monte playlisto! Yes, dear listener, the styling, profiling, limousine ride, jet flying, playlist making, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, has once again returned from the shores of Playlistia to bring another beautiful bounty in the form of a playlist of music categorised by song. In the words of the immortal Shania Twain, let's go, girls! Yes, the playlist. Starting off with Jazzy and her brand new single, Makeup, a collaboration with Belters Only, an electropop pulsating song by these two, and by Jazzy, and she is most definitely the main character in her own song, with an incredibly commanding vocal that pulls through the vivid dance beats and electropop sound of it. It's clear to see when you listen to songs like this why exactly Jazzy is as powerful and as kind of commanding and has captured the imagination of not just Ireland but further ashore with her music, because she is an incredible artist that really, when she's on a song like this, when it is a song like Makeup, she is the point of focus, and she can hold the song and hold everything around her so well, and she's an incredible artist. Makeup is a great song. It is built for that kind of dance, vivid, bounce to kind of type track, and she absolutely delivers with this one. Yet again, Jazzy on the rise with Makeup. Next up, we have Shobsy with Entertainment, and I really like this song because it had this kind of retro pop, kind of synth pop feel to it. It has incredibly slick stylization and stylism to it. And what I really liked about Shobsy on this track in particular is just how great his vocal is as well, almost like the Jazzy one, where this is the type of music that lives and dies by the strength of a vocal. You can't have a weak vocal on this song, especially with such a big production around it that is kind of calling to mind more retro pop, more almost 80s kind of sounds. You need to have a voice that is unique and commands the presence and the space. And absolutely, I have to say, from Shobsy's previous work, this is the best work to date, and it's the most complete work to date in terms of showcasing the artist and showcasing their strengths, because it doesn't seem kind of chewed up by the song. It seems actually, no, I have a handle on this. I am, it is me. I'm the central point. Again, almost like the jazziness of it all in the last track. But I think this is undoubtedly his best work to date, and an incredible funky kind of retro pop song that you just kind of go right in there, right in on that one. Really like it. Next up we have Sun Machine with Pale Azure. This is a texturally weighted shoegaze track that kind of has those big swing for the fences indie moments in it. There's a moment as well where I feel it's very kind of, and I don't know if they like me for this as well, but there's a real feel of it at times of Noel Gallagher's solo work. It's that kind of, it's indie, but it's reaching for something a little bit more. It's reaching for something a little bit more texturally complex. Vocally as well, there's moments in there that really play into that. It's a song that kind of has that kind of pounding backdrop that slowly but surely builds into what is the crescendo of the song. And I think they really handle it well. Sun Machine are a band we talked about and written about in the last mixtape over the years, and almost like Shobsy in a way, it's just like a real kind of turn of phrase, turn into like, what is the sound, what is the feel, what is the music. And I think it's a great track by Sun Machine, Pale Azure. And check it out. It is a far-reaching shoegaze indie track. Next up, we have Silverbacks with Selling Shovels. Silverbacks have returned once again with that angular, sharp disco, like that kind of edged indie kind of song with kind of punk kind of feel to it. It really kind of does play with, I was going to say, as the kind of the New York punk, which kind of melded with disco with the kind of with the beats and stuff like that. And this is just so brilliant in how it plays with the tightly woven guitars, the rigidity of that kind of punk feel and that punk music. And it really kind of connects and interconnects with the music as well. It's a really strong track for that, in just how interwoven and kind of angular it is. They're really great at kind of playing with a sense of almost, like it's almost like it's not trying, but it is, which all great punk bands must be able to do, which is make it sound like you're not trying, but you are trying. And it's a great track by them as well. And, they're so good at that, of having the guitars so tightly woven into one another and feeling like they're completely locked in and interconnected. When you listen to the band, they are so on it as a group, and they are so together as a group that it's hard not to smile at just how great a band that they are. And Silverbacks, yeah, selling shovels, a really welcome return from these guys. Up next though, Vera with Reasons, and I really loved this track because it has that kind of brooding, tense, commanding vocal. We were talking about kind of the command of a vocal here. Seems to be the thread on this week's show. And yeah, this one is just absolutely, when the vocal comes in, there's a little bit of shades of PJ Harvey there, the snarled kind of feel to it, there's a kind of an edge to it, there's an undercurrent to the music perfectly meets as well the meter of the vocals, and they kind of collide into what is, yeah, as I say, just commanding vocal performances from an artist or from a band rather, that really kind of get it, really know how to lock in together, like Silverbacks as well, and create, a music that has a real power to it, brought to the fore by just a vocal that really just swings for the fences and gets that snarled, gritty kind of center stage moment. And that is Vera with Reasons. Do check it out. Next up we have Skinner with New Wave Vaudeville, and yeah, this is a hell of a fun of a track. Yeah, this goes into the kind of the disco rock funk of it all, and there's a little bit of shades, and I don't know if I kind of got it. If you were to remove the 80s production from Undercover of Night by the Rolling Stones, there would be a lot of this in that. There is that kind of feel to New Wave Vaudeville by Skinner, of that kind of, there's bits of kind of punkishness in it, there's bits of new wave, there's bits of rock in it, but there's this beat to it that kind of uplifts it, keeps it moving, keeps it syncopated, kind of really gives a pulse to it. And above that as well, there's just a really great performance that pulls you in to the world of the song, and just to how, yeah, kind of jolting and fun, and yeah, just kind of the irrepressible feel of it, that it is just an amazing track, and I really enjoyed it. And again, with Skinner, it's kind of been coming, and it really gets there in the end, where it has like, oh, this is, you've locked onto a sound here that really works, and a production that really works as well, because it has a really complete sound and complete feel to it. And as well as that, gets Skinner not away from the pack in terms of a lot of artists and bands that are creating this type of sound, but does give an added something that separates Skinner and gives him a leg up in terms of like, what is his sound, what is different, what is the unique selling point of this artist. And yeah, New Wave Vaudeville really does set him apart in those ways. And it looked like Sun Machine and Shobsy earlier, most certainly his best work to date as well. And it really comes through on New Wave Vaudeville. And that is all of the tracks today from the Count of Monte playlist. But he shall return next week, and you can check out all of these tracks on TLMT's Irish Mixtape on Spotify. Check it out and listen to new music when and wherever you can. Yes, dear listener, before we leave you for this week's show, some gigs happening around Dublin town this week, and they're mainly all happening in the Ivy Gardens, one of my favourite outdoor venues during the summertime. And tonight, Pillow Queens will take to the stage. Tomorrow night then, followed by Passenger, also in the Ivy Gardens. Staying with the Ivy Gardens, we also have Phoenix playing on Thursday night, July 18th, and then Mr. Damien Dempsey, will be playing a pair of shows on the 19th and the 20th, both in the Ivy Gardens, and always an immense occasion when he comes to town, especially when he plays the Ivy Gardens. I've seen it a good few times and they have been amazing, amazing shows, and what an atmosphere he creates in what is a beautiful, beautiful venue. And so it goes, and there it went. But before I go, thank you for listening to the Last Mixtape podcast. You can subscribe to us all usual places and spaces on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. If you want to watch it, you can also submit your music to me via stephen@thelastmixtape.com and send on all your new music or gigs or whatever info you would like. But for now, that was the Last Mixtape podcast. I was Stephen White. You were the listener. Hey, so long.